So in this particular community, one of the things we like to address here is how people can be brave and courageous, rather than allowing fear to get the better of them.
Yeah.
What they can do to step out bravely and make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to take this in two parts.
Yeah.
One, how do you think our particular community, DFW in general, Dallas maybe specifically, has changed in the last maybe 10, 15, 20 years, especially in the years in which you've been a community leader? And then part two, what could we do if we wanted to make a difference in a very particular way? Because so many of us don't have the platform that you formed for yourself,
Yeah.
but would still like to make some kind of contribution.
Absolutely. So the first part, I think it's a very critical one, wherein what change have you seen, right? I mean, I think I remember Joe Clifford, who used to be the pastor with the First Presbyterian Church in Dallas. And I remember when in my early stages, when I was formulating Faith Forward Dallas, he warned me. He said such an initiative has been, ventured into many times in the past, and they were not successful. Faith leaders to be able to come together beyond their distinctness and to be able to say that we're coming together.
Especially so many diverse
Like
faith
you'll
leaders.
see in fact, at that point, the mayor had, I think it was called Churches Council or something along those lines.
Is it Mayor Rawlings at the time?
Yeah, at Mayor Rawlings' time. And it was all representation of Christians, right?
It was.
And it was interesting, right? I mean, even at that point in time, Dallas was very, very diverse. I mean, it's continued. I think that diversity is increasing day by day.
Absolutely.
But the diversity was still very prevalent in not just in cultures, but also in the faith tradition. Despite that, the Churches Council was the only one that was present, which means only the Christian churches had a voice at the table with the mayor. But now that's changed.
Yes, it has.
I think so that's kind of one big change that I'm seeing, where
Very big change.
Where people we understand, probably not completely, we haven't embraced it as yet, but at least we know there's diversity.
Well, here's a good example. Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't you the person who really led the coordination of the interfaith prayer gathering that happened in the summer of 2016?
Oh, yes.
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 And
yes.
You did that because of your role.
Yeah.
What you had been doing with Faith Forward,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how was that received? Because that may have been the first really high level interfaith gathering that was almost kind of blessed by the city in a sense.
Yeah. You're referring to the National Day of Prayer, right?
Yes, because it was just before I moved here.
So let me tell you that National Day of Prayer has been happening for at least through Thanksgiving Square for at least, I would say, over 40 years.
Okay.
So that prayer platform was always there. And we always were leaning towards interfaith. But I think, like the way we are doing our friendship bracelets, it is a symbol, right?
How's yours coming, by the way?
I think it's coming along really well.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm kind of shuttling between the three colors that I have. So it was symbolic, but it was like once a year you do that event, and then
like you check the box.
And then it's all scattered, right? Then when it comes down to kind of real issues and inclusion, we go back to our own normal way of operation. So I think that's kind of one thing that I'm seeing the change. I want us to, I think it's important that we also acknowledge that once we embrace diversity, that doesn't mean we are necessarily inclusive. Because diversity is the reality of my life. You have no choice but to have me as your neighbor, because I choose to live next to you. So sure, you gave me the freedom to live next to you, but I may still you may still not like the idea of me being your neighbor.
Well, and inclusive seems like it's on a spectrum where you kind of begin with maybe tolerance,
Yes.
then maybe you get to inclusion, but all the while hoping to actually reach belonging, where it's not just inclusion like we're polite,
Yeah.
but the belonging where really, really you belong here, just like I belong here. No one belongs here more.
Yeah, and with belonging comes like this idea, like, again, I'll refer back to my faith tradition because it's my driving force, but this idea that diversity is the reality of life. We're all different by default. We were created different. And then His Highness talks about pluralism, which is I learn to understand what makes us different from you, what makes me different from you. And in that process of getting to know that difference, I learned to tolerate because, the first sense is like, I'm going to tolerate you around me. And then the next step is, where I start to accept, okay? And then I learn to coexist with you with respect and dignity. Like your notion of belonging, I'm kind of breaking it up and saying that
Yep.
not only I let you stay as my neighbor, but I let you feel accepted in that space. And then I also make an effort to get to know you. Belonging does not come by just letting someone live next to you.
Mm-hmm.
It comes with this idea of actually getting to know me. You may not agree with me, but you still kind of get to know me. And once you get to know me, what happens is you start to hurt when I hurt, and I start to hurt when you hurt. And when you get to that point of hurting for each other, is where you've actually embraced diversity and pluralism to the point where you're actually going to go and stand, with holding arms, Christians and Jews and Sikhs and everyone coming together and holding arms, when you witness anti-Semitism or when you witness Islamophobia or if you see an attack on a mosque or things like that. Getting to the point where I may not agree on some international policies on Israel and Palestine, but I still heard when you heard and taking an action around it. And I think to some point, going back to our original, conversation, that's the big change that I have seen. I think we've gotten a little bit from not just accepting the fact that, diversity is there, but we're getting through this interfaith work that we've been doing for past, like, at least over like a decade. People are getting to know each other. Like, you have a sense of me, Chris. Like, you and I have interacted
Yes.
a few times and done some programming together. I have a sense of who you are. I may not know you completely, but I have a sense. I have a sense on your faith tradition. You've taken an effort to get to know what Islam is. And that is where you're actually going to not just saying that, people who claim to be Muslims are part of my social fabric, but I've made an effort to get to know them.
It's not tokenism.
Exactly. And that is a little change that I'm seeing in Dallas.
I'm very glad to hear that.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, we haven't gotten like completely where we need to be, but at least we have some sense on where what that diversity looks like.
Well, so given that, I'd love for you to take just a moment as we kind of reach the end of our time.
Oops. Okay.
To speak about opportunities that people have here in Dallas specifically and what they could do to really try to make their community not only just more tolerant, but also to really reach that inclusion and that belonging if people want to be beyond kind and to really love one another. What do you think they could do?
I think it's very important to be present. Like, I like to quote Byron Stevenson, the author of Just Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
Where he said that if you really want to be part of the solution of some of the issues that you see in the society, you have to be in proximity with that issue.
You have to show up.
You have to show up. You can't be sitting in your Eiffel Tower and in a think tank and, strategizing and, making policies, but you got to have some field experience. So if you are someone who believe in embracing diversity, then set a goal to actually go around and meet new people on a weekly basis. Go share a meal. I go eat a different cuisine. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Invite people who are different, who look different from you. Like that, those are simple things. And showing up, as you said, there's just so many issues currently that we're facing, not just globally, nationally, but locally, and being present and being there,
I imagine some people watching this will say, I would love to do that. I have no idea how. I don't know where to go. I don't physically see another person. Or if I do, I don't want to be the weirdo who in the grocery store walks up and says, hello, person who looks different than me. Can I come have a meal with you? That seems a bit creepy.
Sure.
Because of what you do, are there regular moments where there are events that are essentially designed to allow people to meet people who are a little bit different than them?
Oh, absolutely.
Give me an example of a couple.
So, absolutely, I would invite people to join Faith Forward Dallas.
Faith for Dallas.
And, not only, I know it's a clergy group, but, non-clergy can be a member as well.
Mm-hmm.
We also have programming around Interfaith Council where we do congregation visits as well, right? That gives
Yes,
you,
you
it's
do.
a very concrete space in which you actually go visit. And I'll be honest that if you just look up some of the multi-faith and intercultural events that are happening in town, even programming, each individual communities like Indian communities and Muslim communities, they do a lot of programming within their own, spaces. And some of these programs are open for public.
Many of them are.
Many of them, and to be able to go attend those events and listen to the music, listen to the museum. Right now, if you went to DMA, you're going to see like a whole clear collection of Muslim art displayed there. These are small windows in which, you can get a peek into someone else's faith, tradition, culture. And, those are opportunities that people can tap on. And I would say that all the organizations that I'm associated with it, if you see a homeless, person on the street, I would say take a moment, stop and check, and you'll be surprised that there are so many ways in which you can support a homeless person. You don't have to give a single dime.
Yes.
Honestly, just giving them a drive to a shelter, Austin Street or Family Gateway or whatever that is, would be the way to kind of start. So those are some ways you can begin the process.
What a lot of people may not realize, and you hinted at this earlier, some of the most diverse communities in the country are right here in Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
In our suburbs in particular.
Yeah.
And so if you can find some of those communities, not only is it great music, I totally agree, art, all the other stuff, but it's great food. Oh my gosh.
I told you,
I
totally
love food.
Yeah, absolutely. And on situations where, people are starving. In times when there's a storm, right? Sometimes you hear media covering stories of people who've just gone around in their community and neighborhood and offered water or electricity or invited them
Just
over.
Something simple.
I think crises are good times to be able to kind of come out of your bubble and, your cocoon and say, let me kind of step out and do something.
Gives you permission.
Just finding those. And then, for the larger, conversation of really immersing yourself into someone else's space, I think music, cuisine, and attending interfaith events are definitely those moments, where you can capture. I also invite people to read books. Attend events that are organized by World Affair Council and many other like Dialogue Institute and so many others, right? So it's about and you may not be able to cover all faith tradition, all cultures.
Start somewhere.
Just somewhere. If you like Japanese food, if you like Chinese, I would also invite some of our friends to come and visit us at Oak Lawn, where we receive buses every, I think, thrice a week. And these are migrants that we
Yes.
receive. Just check us out and say hello to some people who come from across the globe, who are coming to this country with the aspiration to fulfill their American dream. So you're all welcome there, and you're welcome to my space, to my Ismaili Jamaat Khana as well. And I'm here. You can check me out on my LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
And just find, and I think that is very important. Sometimes we think about like big ways in which we want to make a difference, but it has to begin with a small step. And the small step could be just your neighbor. I mean, do you even know your neighbor? I don't mean that I know what their names are, but do you really know them? Start there.
Start there.
Yeah.
A small step can make a
small
big
step.
difference.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so how are you looking?
I think I'm looking okay.
It's coming.
This is gonna be my like little, I think I'm gonna give like an extended part where I can actually tie it, right? Because
That's
I
right.
didn't do as much as you did. How many sections did you have?
I think I got the 5 colors in mine.
I got 1, 2, 3, 4 as well.
There you go.
I guess I used like one color twice, but that's okay.
Well, I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for the little experiment, and thank you for sharing so much of your heart and your soul with us. It really makes a difference. On behalf of Dallas, we are very grateful for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And remember, you have the power to be fearless.